Hello, welcome back. This is Gavatron. I am doing another commentary for the World Championships in Through the Ages. This is the second game I've done commentary for. In the first one, I won a match, and I went on to win the other two matches. So I've won 3 out of a possible 4. This is the final match against the only other player who won all their matches as well. This is Zulda. I'll be calling Zulda yellow. So let's get into the game here. So, before we start getting into the game, let's look at the leaders and wonders. So I looked at this mix of leaders and wonders. Notice the spaceflight Manhattan Project in age 3, as well as Sid Meier and Einstein and Steve Jobs. So looking like science is pretty good endgame strategy. It's also Newton in age 2 for that strategy. So notice that there could be some military action in the game with Jan Žižka here, and the Great Wall, and Himeji Castle, the railroad. But there aren't a lot of military actions besides Žižka, as he's the only one. Okay. Let me turn the volume down. It's sounding pretty loud for me here. I'll just turn it right off there. Right. So he'll actually be green in this replay. So green takes Sun Tzu. So he's electing to go for a military start here. There are a lot of synergies with Sun Tzu in the game in age 1. So Jan Žižka, Columbus, and Khan. So I need to, when I see that, I need to think about preparing for military. So I decide to take Stonehenge. I know I imagine he's going to go for the Roman roads, and out of the wonders that are left, Stonehenge is my preference. So I'll grab Stonehenge. And I'll grab the Richland as well. I imagine I'm going to delay building a second lab because I have Stonehenge giving me a lot of science. And I'm looking at leaders coming down because he's already picked a leader, which one I'm wanting. And I'm looking at Hippocrates and Confucius. Either of those would be pretty nice for me. So green grabs or elects Sun Tzu, and he'll build a second mine, and he'll go for Roman roads like we expected him to do. So I decide to take Confucius over Hippocrates. I decide to do that because I will have a happy face from Stonehenge, so Hippocrates giving me extra yellow tokens doesn't seem quite as strong. And I feel like Hippocrates, you want to switch him out after, 2 or 3 turns, whereas Confucius, I can keep him for a bit longer. And if no good age 1 leaders come out, then I can just stick with Confucius for a while. So I will elect him and build a mine and increase population. And I get vast territory and call to arms. So green decides to cede even if he doesn't have a extra population, and he'll open development of markets. He can grab the engineering genius for his Roman roads, increase population, and he'll go for a second mine early. So Not really electing to rush out the Roman roads. So on my turn, I decide that either of these events are a bit risky. I don't know if I'm going to be the strongest for call to arms. And the vast territory, I mean, he's going to draw more cards and more potential for colonization cards. So I'm not really willing to play that yet until I have, you know, cartography or some more military actions. So I definitely looking at these knights, but I'll build a lab first and grab those knights and take that early iron. I mean, there's a lot of, I'm grabbing 2 techs that have 5 science each, so it's a bit risky, but I do have Stonehenge to give me science, so I didn't feel that bad about grabbing both of those. So he finishes the Roman roads and takes the second iron and plays out the fighting band. So I decide to seed an aggression using Confucius's ability. I still want to keep that vast territory around, um, just in case I can use it. There is Christopher Columbus here. But this development of science comes out, which gives me a lot of science, so I decide to go for the monarchy here. I can't develop it straight away, but part of the reason I take it is I think it's pretty good for him because he has 8 science. He can develop that right on his turn, so it's kind of a denial pick for him. And I decide to start getting into iron and maybe go for monarchy with Stonehenge in the future. He will develop iron as well, start working on it, and take the other knights. I will seed the Dark Ages. The reason for that is I have some expensive science cards, and I'm hoping I can avoid Dark Ages by just playing out all my science. And I know it's coming, so that's why I decided to do that. I open development of settlement. So I decide to get into monarchy here, upgrade my mines, and grab irrigation for food. So he'll open development of civil life. That's nice for him. He can develop his knights very cheaply. But instead he decides to increase his population. He'll get the swordsman here. Upgrade, get alchemy. So working on his economy. I will finish Stonehenge and get into knights with my tactic. Actually, I don't play out the tactic because Zizka's coming in. Now this is an interesting turn because of this card, Zizka. I mean, I suppose I could have grabbed it for 3, but it's pretty expensive. And I see Nostradamus here as kind of a card I could get for slightly cheaper to kind of counter Zizka. But I think there's a pretty good argument to just wait for what he picks and I get the second choice just because of how expensive it all is. What do I use civil life for? I increase population. Okay. Yeah, so if he takes Yan, I'll take Nostradamus and I'll take Richland to get the last upgrade here. But I think there's an argument to taking Yanjishka here, because Nostradamus is not nearly as good for him with Sun Tzu. Take the cultural heritage for more science. Alright. He upgrades alchemy, grabs Yan, just like we suggest. He already has that fighting band tactic. And he starts upgrading his labs. And he'll get a second tactic by building a warrior. So I do get Nostradamus for 1 here. And can also pick up the Himeji Castle, which is nice. And I decide to grab the Code of Laws to deny him actions because there's only one Code of Laws in the game. So I think this might have been a mistake, but I do have cultural heritage in my hand, so I can get it out next turn. Well, in a few turns, but I could have sort of finished upgrading this or worked on my Himeji Castle instead. So we'll see if that makes a difference in this game. He ends up not being able to use his Engineering Genius A. And he seeds, opens up Crusades, and because of Nostradamus, he's both strongest and weakest. So it doesn't affect his culture at all. He'll start increasing his military, and he'll grab the Great Wall, which is pretty nice for him, given how many warriors he has, and swordsmen. So I am the weakest here, but I do decide to seed because I want that extra culture from Nostradamus. So I seed and open up Dark Ages, so we both lose 1, not the biggest deal. I'll use Cultural Heritage to get up Code of Laws. I decide to build another lab for science and upgrade. And I'll grab Engineering Genius 1 for Himeji and Drama. Drama because there is Bach and Shakespeare in this game, so it seems like a good card. Alternatively, I could have grabbed Cartography, but I wouldn't have been able to get that up next turn. Draw Icono, Terrorism, Wealthy Territory. He seeds, opens up one of my Confucius events, and he finishes the Great Wall. So he's at 12 now, so he's really putting on pressure with strength. I decide not to play an event even though I would get extra culture, and that's because in this deck there is barbarians. I think I seeded that, and if I played the event I would have had more culture and then I would have lost a population. And I don't really have a way to, like, I have an issue with food that I need to solve soon, so it would be a problem losing a population. Like, I want to get this worker doing something more useful. So another interesting thing that comes up is constitutional monarchy and republic are here. So I can deny him one of these, but instead I grab the selective breeding to deny him food. Because there's only one selective breeding in this game. He did not get irrigation. So I'm kind of trying to starve him out a little bit. He uses up 3 actions, but might be worth it. And I grab scientific method. So he seeds again and opens up uncertain boards. This hurt for sure. But I mean, this is a consequence of letting him have Zhishka, that he's going to become this strong. And this is nice for him. So that allows him to build another farm and go up to 2 extra food. per turn because of that extra yellow token, and he'll grab Frugality for more food, upgrade a lab, and he can get it to Constitutional Monarchy pretty soon. So maybe it would have been better to deny him the Constitutional Monarchy instead of the selective breeding. Okay, so this was a tricky turn. First I need to decide if I want to seed an event, but nothing in my hand is really appealing to me to seed. Like Iconoclasm, it would come out too late to deny him Zhishka. Terrorism, I might not be the weakest. And these two colonies aren't that appealing because he has Zhishka and Constitutional Monarchy, so he'll have a lot of military actions to draw colonization cards. So I decide to not seed, and instead, well, on my turn I decide to increase my food production and grab the revolutionary idea so I can get into scientific method and grabbing cannon because I do have this Napoleonic army. So stuff I need to get is organized religion for happy faces. I'm sort of have a problem with that. And the cannons for the tactic. If I can get the riflemen, I can start getting into this Napoleonic army. Problem is, look how much stuff I have in my hand. It's very crowded. So the revolution idea will help empty out my hand by getting into the text, but it's not really ideal having a full hand at this stage. So green will seed, open up barbarians. Doesn't affect him because he's at 14 strength. Get into Conmon, grab team sports and breakthrough. He needs happy faces too. He gets 2 breakthroughs. Maybe I should have grabbed one of those to deny him. And gets into even more strength, up to 22. So here now I need to ward off aggressions, even though I have him Castle. I decide to I need to get up to 9 strength to defend, because I can sacrifice a knight and use a defense card to get up to get +9. But he could also have a war, so I need to keep that in mind. I decide to play politics because I know that this event is coming up next, and I could use the culture. And I decide to play the iconoclasm, which is not ideal, but I'll know it's coming. And Bach is coming down, but it's not looking so good for me, and he's not looking very good for me considering the amount of military he's pushing. So I let him win that colony. I don't need it that much, and I want to keep my population. And some of the cards I need are here, like Rifleman. So I will grab it and get up to 9 strength to defend an aggression, and I increase population. I'm worried about a war here, but he doesn't have a war. Instead, he opens up Independence Declaration, which doesn't affect me as I have no colonies. And he goes for Justice System and gets into team sports. So now he has happy faces. He takes reserves for food probably and cavalrymen. So I'm pretty happy there's no war, but he is looking very strong here with his constitutional monarchy. His science is looking pretty strong, and he's still doing okay with culture. I guess his main weakness is food, but with the reserves, that definitely helps him. On my turn, I know that economic progress is on top. So I need to decide if I'm going to open that, and eventually I decide to. I originally thought I wanted to put off opening this event, as I was worried I would get into a new leader and then lose it from iconoclasm, so I didn't really want to make the deck move any faster. But I do want to make sure I don't have too much corruption when this event comes down. So I decide to open it and I can use it to get into science for the end game. So I gain 4 and 4, and so I go heavy into science here, grabbing Nobel, and then upgrading twice and increasing population. Get out corruption with knights. So I'm up to 9 science per turn. So I also could have gone into organized religion, but I know from Nostradamus that there's no events here that like civil unrest or immigration. So that's the reason I don't go into that. I can save it for later. And the reason I take Nobel is I need a new leader. The age is gonna change, and Nobel was there for 2, and Bach is not really very appealing for the end game with what I have. I need to get into science. So hoping with the science that I have and Nobel that a science leader comes out early like Einstein or Jobs. We'll see if that happens. And Iconoclasm comes out right away, which is kind of funny. So he loses his Zizka, which he would have lost anyway. And whoops. He's grabbing cards. For some reason, I can't switch leaders. Okay, that's all right. We'll have to see what he did when we go back to his turn. So here I see the popularization of science as it fits into my science endgame strategy, and I'm hoping the arms industry I seeded comes out pretty soon. This international agreement gives him cards to grab, including the oil, which will work really well with Watt. But on my turn, I get into organized religion because I have happy face issues. I grab the wave and efficient upgrade. I could have grabbed rich land, but I'll definitely be able to use this efficient upgrade on my last lab, whereas the rich land, I'm not sure I'd be able to use it. Okay, let's see if it goes to his turn. Yeah, it does. Okay, so he uses his political action to grab Manhattan Project. So he's interested in pushing military, because he doesn't have that much science, but it will help his military. And he does go in, this is a really strong turn for him. He goes into Watt and oil, and since he has so many rocks, he can go into 2 of them, up to 12 strength, or 12 rock production. He already has 28. He's got tons of rocks. So now I need to be even more concerned about a war with his rock production. So I need to start preparing for potentials of war. So I go for cannons and grab this revolutionary idea for more science. I could have gone for this Red Cross, but I felt like it was a bit risky because he could start to go for war with all his. He has strategy and he has these 2 military techs and he has all of these rocks. So I decided to play it safe here. And I pick up a war of culture, which doesn't help me that much. So he grabs the multimedia and starts to get into his endgame strategy, which is libraries, multimedias. He's up to 9 culture, and he still has making tons of rocks. So let's look at the culture here. He's got 50, so he already has a lead, and it's gonna keep getting bigger with those multimedias. Um, so I look at that and think maybe I could start going for war myself to sort of punish him, because their air forces do come up. Um, and I could try to go for 2 Napoleonic armies, but it's still not that appealing because of that strategy and Kanmon and all these resources. Um, so I just decide to go for culture and try to race him, which might be a mistake, but at the time I thought this was my best hope, especially if I could, get one of those science leaders and get a good space flight. So I grab the computers, I'd grab Engineering Genius for the space flight, and get my last lab up. I'm producing 11. And on this turn, spaceflight appears. Um, I'm wondering if this is going to be a contested card. Arms Industry comes out, which is great for me because I have all the best technologies, so I get a lot of rocks. He upgrades the last mine, so he's up to 15 rocks, and he'll go for mechanized as, so his economy is just enormous right now. He actually goes for 3 farms. So at this stage, I'm really worried because he can go for a pretty big war. I guess the only thing he's missing for a massive war is the modern infantry for his swordsmen. But he has Manhattan Project, and he doesn't go for the air forces, so I could deny him that. So for me to go to war, I would need military theory and maybe fundamentalism for more military actions if I don't get military theory. Um, so yeah, pretty worried. Not feeling that good. Um, so I know prosperity's here, so I decide to seed something. I open it up, I get 7 food. I grab the space flight, and Einstein shows up, so I grab him, and I get air forces. I take corruption here, but these are 2 things I really need. For any hope of winning. Like I need to get Einstein, get a few Nobel Prizes, and finish the space flight. If you look at the culture, it's still pretty close. But we're getting towards the end of the game. But I need Einstein and air forces to defend / attack. So he opens up inhabited territory. I bid up to 8, but he bids more. And he sends the swordsman, so maybe he can transition using that, but instead he just goes for more culture, goes for Marie Curie. With his oil, that makes sense, he gets even more science, and he will finish the Manhattan Project for 16. Maybe he can get another wonder, and he'll develop strategy before it disappears. So I can't go for war here with his science rating, or with his military rating, his techs, although these will disappear, but he could go for, he just has too much stuff. So I decide to cede the impact of government because I have democracy, and I can grab military theory to get it better. And this is the turn that I switch out Nobel as well. Popularization of science comes out, doesn't prove to be very good for me as I expected. And I get Einstein, and I can develop computers and air forces to get the Nobel Prize and get 6 culture from Einstein. Grab the satellites for impacts and military theory. I'll go into next turn, and I'll build an air force and reveal Napoleonic army, so I'll be the strongest. And this will be his last turn. And he opens Impact of Science and he wins that, which is really nice as well. I'm not really feeling very good about this game at this stage because I feel like he has seeded a ton of impacts, and with his economy, like with his numbers here of his economy, he can win a lot of them. And he goes for engineering, so a clue maybe impact of progress, and computers, and just builds a couple more swordsmen. So I'll get military theory for the impact of government, can develop satellites to win the Nobel Prize, and finish my space flight for 28. Not bad, but you sort of wonder if it's going to be enough with the impacts coming in. So impact of government moves me up 2, so I'm down by 9, but he's got 3 other impacts. Competition comes up, I move within 4, that's nice for me. But culture comes out, I couldn't really compete with all those multimedias. And colonies comes out, which is nice for him too. So he ends up winning by 20 points. It's a good game. I think the key to his victory was certainly the oil with Watt and the early multimedias. Like he was able to invest those rocks into multimedias. I think looking back, I shouldn't have given him Zizka. Like I should have grabbed him instead, and he would have been left with Nostradamus. I think Zizka proved really strong for him, winning the uncertain borders was nice for him. And perhaps some of my other denial plays like selective breeding and Coda Laws were ultimately not worth it. But overall it was a pretty good game, and I don't think I played terrible, but I think I could have played better. So next set of games are coming up in January. So once again I'll try to commentate at least 1 or 2. Thanks for watching.